thankfully I have customers who put in things, I have customers actually who do put in materials that are more than what is specified or what is required by the local regulation. Like I have customers who want to put DGUs in this panel glass. And the reason they want to do it is because they want the building to be better. Now, example for this Siderise product, this is the fire stop. There is also something which is a spandrel insulation. Now, there is no there is no code which says that the spandrel insulation also has to be a tested insulation, fire retardant insulation. But I have customers who want to incorporate that. So, I am fortunate enough that they are actually adopting the latest technologies.
But if you were to speak for industry, are all customers fortunate enough to?
No, so there are anomalies that do exist. There are anomalies that do exist. So I think what needs to change predominantly is to
Maybe you can speak on the rest of the industry.
Is to have a very strong regulation in terms of what is the bare minimum required for a building to get its occupation certificate.
And that should be a fire norm and so on and so forth.
Correct. So that's part of the whole thing. There should be a checklist that the facade should have this bare minimum requirements, which would then allow it to be certified as a building. So you can have different criteria if it is a 10-story building or a 20-story building or a 70 to 80-story building that we execute. But there should be a bare minimum criteria as a certificate.
There are some customers who care, like if there's a multinational bank that wants 5 floors from your building. So I think I would agree with Rohan to I think a very large extent that you have to spell out what is expected. There has to be a certification agency, a person willing to sign off saying that this is done. And that is covering all your basics, whether it's about structural integrity, whether it's about fire safety. Those being very basic, you don't want your window to fall, you don't want your window to catch fire. But beyond that, how thermally insulated is your window? If I don't have enough money to spend on my windows, I can probably live with this noise, right? So there can be then rated facades, like acoustically it's a 3-star or 4-star or 5-star. That is easier to communicate to your buyer. They can go expecting, say, oh, if I go for a 5-star facade, how much extra will I have to shell out? Same comes to environmental performance as well, whether you are, you can actually block out sun at 3-star, 4-star or 5-star. But I think the basics, which is structural, fire, they need to be a minimum criteria, which needs to be spelled out really well.
Like, there was a question I asked you, what is the bare minimum as a customer when I'm buying an office house? What should I really look for is first structural integrity and fire safety. The two striking questions that I should ask my seller.
And then the third thing which is important after that is pani nahi aana chahiye.
I think Bombay dynamics are quite different. The land becomes pricier, so they knock the building down. Bombay very specifically. I mean, most buildings don't see a day beyond 25. Where your land becomes so precious and somebody transfers the FSI to build something tall on the same piece of land.
I think again, land, developers, like you said, you need to have balls to be a developer. So all the developers, we salute you, sir, ladies and gentlemen, to be in that frame.
There's a lot more to say, but I think first of all, again, architecturally, there are several facets which I have to look at. Slowly we'll have a carbon rating system and carbon credits, and through the carbon credits entire project needs to be delivered, and within that bracket then safety, security, sustainability, wellness of the occupant, because people will look at organic life. Slowly you will see the trend going closer to the organic. So new trends are going to come slowly into the market in the real estate industry, and through these trends people are going to be demanding and commanding how they want to invest or how they would like to invest into real estate industry. There was a time when it was like ek mahal ho sapnon ka, it was just like a newly married couple and they wanted one house. Now everybody wants a well house with a good water condition, with a RO and with that kind of a cleanliness factor. So all these factors are going to become a benchmarking when I'm moving my pencil. So when I look at it, the future is more or less on edge, where I would look at it more like a sci-fi movie kind of a thing, and I'm going to have several kind of Excel sheets, and through which the design has to evolve. because I want to make sure that every step is been ticked. All those boxes needs to be ticked, and then only it will come out as a best cook recipe. So this is how the design will be happening in future.
So like you're saying, something will just evolve, and something you guys will have to do.
Now it is going to be more of a systematic way of analysis. See, even our high-rise industry have seen more than a decade. So people have realized that what are the shortcomings of living in a high-rises. I have designed high-rises 15 years back. I never lived in one, and I don't want to ever live in one. I live on a second floor because for me, the staircase is not rated. I'll open my door and run down. So it's like I live below the tree. Now people will realize that, oh, that's the better way of living, and certain trends are going to change, and that's a new kind of a trend.
Do you live in a high rise?
No.
Do you live in a high rise?
No.
Do you live in a high rise?
No.
Me neither. Oh God, we're talking about a subject.
Like there's a saying, right? Dealers don't consume.
Yes, exactly.
No, she just put a pin on it.
Yeah. So it's like I design and I get excited, and I'm on my 60th floor of my building, and I'll click my picture and I will enjoy that. But living there, disconnected from the ground, is not something which is me. So
yeah, that's a personal preference.
That's a personal preference. But then I have to design for who is going to live on 60th floor, how that person is safe, how that person is going to egress, and how well and how happy that person is because he has accepted living on 60th floor. That's what my palette is.
So you're responsible to ensure
responsible
the
designer
and the egress of that individual.
Yeah.
That's from an architect's perspective.
And he's living in a quieter environment with a good acoustics.
Right.
And he has every element and detail where he's well taken care, no water seeping in.
So for great acoustics, use Siderise products so that you're at least safe.
You rise well.
You rise well, yeah. But when you're talking about this is the hard truth. None of us live in a high-rise building, which is what it is. It is what it is. And I recently I'm kind of circled back and went to meet a friend who lives in one of the tallest buildings in your city, in the 71st floor. We were trying to stand outside in the balcony for a few minutes only. We had to come back in, and the door went blasting, and there was no protection. And I was just thinking, if my hand was somewhere, I would have. Not that I'm talking about the project per se, but it, like you said, I felt a little scared.
See, at every 100 meter, the livability is going to change. The psychological impact is also going to change because building tend to sway.
Of course, then आवाज जब आती है, like little zimmering see, and some people find it very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
it's fine. It's a personal choice, like exactly. So, Gautam, your thoughts from your perspective as a consultant to the industry at large. What should change? What can change? What can we do to save lives? What can we do to be more responsible?
I think going back to my point that it needs to come from top. It needs to be spelled out very, very clearly. It needs to be translated into a parlance which most people can understand who are non-technical. Right. And the buck has to stop somewhere. There needs to be some very sharp accountability because I think typically what ends up happening, which is really unfortunate, anytime there's an incident, people are pointing fingers at each other, and we really don't know where it all started. At what point did the design change? At what point the application changed?
Like
where the corners were cut.
But this is such an interesting episode because we have so much noise. Would have used this, would have had to save so much. Donel, your few cents.
So, to be fair, I'm going to take cues from everyone on this point. It's important to understand that if something is not done right, it is stopped either in the beginning or midway or at the end. So, I'm going to take the example of Dubai again, unfortunately, because according to me, that's the best code in the world. There are a lot of buildings that are not functional, and that's because even after they're completed, they don't get the DCB completion certificate. Yeah. And we need something like that is stringently enforced over here, that inspection is done, and also the maintenance is done after the inspection is complete. So that needs to be done from the top down, right? From a manufacturer's perspective, I have to obviously ensure that my product is fit for purpose, tested for the right application, quality controlled, has the adequate certificates in place, and then the market is educated that this is the right product for the application. again, this goes for both fire and acoustics. We didn't talk a lot about acoustics today, but still, it's extremely important. Obviously, fire saves lives.
So we didn't have to talk about acoustics. We had to
Because we
hammering
were
away
going
all
on.
day. I think it's just hence proved. Hey, this is real time.
Yes.
No, but if you were to ask now, since we're on the topic and we are going to close soon, why are we hearing this sound outside? Is it because the sound is traveling through the walls? Is it because it's traveling through the windows? Is it because it's traveling through the glass? Is it because of something else?
Your question,
And the
your answer.
And the truth behind it could be a combination of all three. But I've seen very often that, you have a lot of architects, a lot of consultants, not both of them, but others who say that, I want to use the best glass. I want to use quadruple glass, which is basically laminated, double laminated glass with an acoustic PVD between both the interlayers of the laminated glass. And this is going to have a reduction value of 70 decibels or something ridiculous of that sort. At the end of the day, you're using a sliding system which has a brush system. So if the seals are not intact, you're going to lose about 30-40 decibels if the seals are not proper.
Yeah.
So it's not just somebody has to look at it. You have to have acoustic engineers who can look at it holistically.
And do the test, no? Before you actually.
You're selling luxury. You're selling in 150,000 per square foot, etc. And you're going to have the road sound coming by you. It's not. It doesn't do justice to it at all.
But I have a developer who has appointed acoustical consultant.
Wow.
And I'm doing a residential project,
Right.
which is with the facade consultant as well as acoustical consultant.
Call me for it. I'll do your good.
So,
No, I want to.
So, there are, I mean, we have to talk about the good examples
Yes,
also.
correct.
I mean, there are
Absolutely.
developers.
100%
Yeah.
good examples.
So, there
to
are
our cheese
developers.
mein.
I think there are
who
people
are-
who are aware of
Yes.
the sound being a problem in a specific site. You're next to the airport, you're next to the highway. They'll get the right people on board on day one.
Correct.
But there are some cases where this sort of question comes in much later in the design process. And then the question comes to kyun chahiye? I said, at least let's get some sound measurements done. We'll try and maybe get the right solution. And then a person whips out his phone, opens a untested, unverified app and is like, dekho itna aa raha hai. I'm saying, no, that's also science. Somebody needs to come, measure it at the right time.
Untested app hai, but at least uski variability 20% plus minus hogi. But
But
it's still not bad than having ki kitni awaaz aa rahi bhai mujhe meri
No,
feeling ye
and
hai.
sometimes developers want to spend. They're spending on that glass.
Yeah.
But they're not aware that it's not just the glass that's causing the
In
sound.
my personal opinion, sliding windows are the worst from any noise perspective.
Depends. No, you have different
The
types of
sound-
seals.
You do have
seals today. You have
solutions
different
available.
slide
Of
doors.
course
We
you
do
have.
gaskets instead of wool pile, and that makes a very big difference. We have
And-
Ulon gaskets, which is another type of, it's not you can slide those gaskets, the frictionless gaskets, but they have proper air seals.
Correct.
So there are
And
methods
the
to solve
user
it.
defines what kind of facade you should have.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
what sort of a user you should have in that kind of facade. I mean, if the facade is not good, you cannot have a acoustical or music studio where the sound is extremely premium.
We are in a studio.
Or a
So-
podcast studio.
Oh, what a bummer. We'll have to bear this in mind, Kapil, next time.
So,
But it's okay.
So you have to
Who
have
would have
that-
known that there is this, not your kind of MC Hammer, some Hammer work going on here.
See, a city is under urban reform.
Always.
So you expect that this is going to be on every nook and corner.
Yeah.
And that's how our city is going to
not
evolve.
only our city here, Bombay or Delhi or Hyderabad, it's going to happen. Tier 2 will start to
Yeah.
develop.
It's happening already.
Already.
It's happening already. I mean, there's infrastructural upgrades happening, and I think us should be not complaining about it because I think we have
Lot of
a
work,
role
lot
to
of
play. In
But I think this role, we should spread this aspect of just self-awareness and spreading this awareness across. That's why this platform is important. We've taken up the challenge to do it for India,
Yeah.
for whichever country. We're taking it up in the Middle East as well, and making sure that we can at least reach out in local languages to the local community who are making the right informed decisions. So with that, we talked about what is safety, fire safety, its egress largely, the ability, the time for the person who can evacuate the building in case of a mishap. We talked about what is the concept of safety. We talked about who's responsible. I think it's all of us. All of us have to undertake. And also, I think this is something high moralistic, but I would say no. If I don't see right and I know my job, and if my job requires 100%, then I'll give 100%. If it's not, I should say no. This is my personal take on it. We talked about how we can fix this problem from the design stage. We talked about passive and active fire protection, which was a new learning, at least for me. We talked about just spreading the word and just telling people to do the right thing, because it costs only a delta 5%, 2% to do it right, and just short to not do it right. With that, I'd like to thank Siderise and all of you guys for joining today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I hope we can send this message. Please, consciously, दिल से काम कीजिए, दिमाग से सोचिए. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Donel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gautam.
Thank you. Amit.